Hi everyone, welcome again to Cook Vegan, another fantastic interview, this time with Kiran Sidhu. Have I said it properly now? Kiran Sidhu.
Yes.
Lovely, lovely. And Kiran's joining us all the way from Canada. She is a plant-based holistic nutritionist, and she specializes in helping mothers and kids thrive on a plant-based diet. So it's exactly what here at Cook Vegan, we're always talking about, especially for those of you who know me with my 3 kids, trying to promote healthy living and quick, easy meals that are nutritious for everyone. So I'm absolutely delighted to have Kiran with us. We bumped into each other, didn't we, on social media? And then we said, right, let's collaborate and do this wonderful interview. So Kiran, thank you so much for joining us here on this YouTube channel and of course our Facebook group. Our pleasure. Really, it's my pleasure. And do you want to tell everyone who's watching a little bit about what you do and why you do it? How did you end up in this amazing field?
Yes. So thank you for that wonderful introduction, Farah, and I'm so happy to be here with you. So I started off actually in a completely different field. I was working with children with autism, and then I had my daughter, and she had some gut issues right off the bat, and I knew that she struggled with certain foods, so I had to do a lot of experimenting on my own. I was vegetarian at the time. I wasn't vegan yet. I was vegetarian, and I hadn't linked, certain foods like dairy and other things that were bothering her gut. And I went to a few different doctors. They didn't really give me much help. They kind of gave me these BandAid solutions, said, here's some medication, just give this to her and you'll be fine. And she'll be fine. And, in my heart, that just didn't feel right to me. I said, she's so little. I don't want to put her on meds now that she's going to have to take for who knows how long. So I really just, I kind of hunkered down with the research, and I said, I'm going to dive in and try to figure out what to do. And so I would read blog after blog. I would go through some research articles, and I try everything that I came across. Some things worked a little, some things helped, some things didn't. And it was just so frustrating. And so I finally just decided, you know what, I need to go all in on this. So I actually went back to school. So I had a bachelor's degree.
That's what I was
but
going to say. Were you a nutritionist when you had your daughter, or you became one as a result?
No, I was not. So I had my bachelor's degree, but I hadn't focused in nutrition at all. So, I dabbled in a couple of nutrition classes as electives
And
when I did
your
my
bachelor's
undergrad.
degree was in? What was
It
your
was
bachelor's?
it was actually in immunology and genetics.
Okay,
So
amazing. All right. So you had that background.
yes, I had that background. And so I kind of had an idea of how, where I needed to go. So I went back to school and became a nutritionist when my daughter was in preschool. So she started preschool, and I said, okay, you know what? She's a little bit older now. She's going to be in preschool a few days a week. I can do this. I'm going to go back to school. So I did. And I'd already helped her somewhat through my own research, but going back to school and learning, all about just gut health and the impact it has and food sensitivities and all of these issues, that really helped me kind of just put all the pieces of the puzzle together and find those last pieces to really get rid of her issues and nip them in the bud. And yeah, she's thriving. When she was a baby, it was such a struggle to keep her weight up and, keep her above that, failure to thrive threshold. It was so stressful. I would get anxiety at every, doctor's visit, at the weigh-in. I would just stand there with my fingers crossed, hope, just hoping that it was above that 5th percentile. And so after going to school and learning all of this, it was no longer a struggle. She would get sick a lot before too. And, as all the other moms out there who've been through this, this, when your kids get sick, they don't want to eat. They end up losing weight, which is fine for kids who, are already, their weight's okay. But for kids who are already struggling with their weight, they're already a little bit underweight. When they get sick and they lose, they drop their weight even further. It is so stressful for us moms because you see it and you're just thinking, please eat something, please eat more. And it's so unbelievably stressful. And so I was able to, boost her immune system as well. So she barely ever gets sick now, which is amazing. It's just such a weight off my shoulders. She barely ever gets sick. Her weight is steady. She's thriving. She's doing amazing in school. And it's just such a turnaround.
She's nearly 9. She's 8. So all of this is, you've had a good time to actually see everything you've learned really
Yes.
work and be in practice.
Yes.
It's amazing. So I actually have everything you're saying. As you said, so many mothers can identify with this. And I have a lot of friends and very close people who've had very similar issues with kids with their gut health, with leaky gut syndrome, with IBS, or weight issues, failure to thrive, and all of these things. And I think many people who are watching this interview will be able, even if they haven't personally been through it, will know someone who has. So having been a mom going through this very stressful time, what would your big advice be to someone who is having this? Like what did maybe the three biggest things that you've learned from this? What would your advice be to people?
One, I would say, is to go with your gut instinct. And if you go to your doctor and you get advice that doesn't sit right with you, and you really know that, okay, that's not right, and I want to really get to the root of this, go with your gut, get a second opinion. What I didn't know back then was that doctors are not really trained in nutrition. They get very little training in nutrition. So, and I know a lot of moms still don't understand that. They go to their doctors looking for guidance, and their doctor says, okay, well, just give them this supplement. If they have an iron deficiency, here, some iron pills, that's all they need. They don't really know how to, really look at the diet to address nutritional deficiencies and balance it and focus on gut health and all of those things. They don't understand that. And so you really need to see a nutritionist. That there's a big difference between the education and just what we do and what doctors do. Doctors are amazing at what they do, but unfortunately, nutrition,
but it's different.
yes,
Yeah,
it's different. And so I wish I had known about my field, the field that I'm in now, when I was, a new mom. I didn't know where I could go. I didn't know who to go to for help. I just kept going to doctor after doctor because that was all I knew. I just thought, okay, if there's something wrong with her health, well, then you go to a doctor. Well, there's a lot of other healthcare practitioners. You can go to nutritionists, you can go to naturopaths.
I love the expression you use, which is so true, like the BandAid, like, something's wrong and you can just, I suffer from skin conditions, and I know many mums who've seen their children go through that, and it's so easy to say, put that cream on, or, this cortisone cream or whatever it might be, and it will fix it, and it will. But the underlying issue is still there. So really that's what has to be addressed. And there's no better way in many cases to do that than through nutrition.
Yes. Yeah. And I would say don't give up, and the number one thing that I wish someone had told me is don't blame yourself. Especially when I learned about, the gut microbiome and how the mother really passes on her gut health to her child. And then I realized that I had my own gut issues that I didn't really know about. And I ended up resolving my own along the way too. On my daughter's journey, I had so much guilt. I had so much guilt in my heart about, oh my goodness, what if I had just known this before? What if I had done my research before? It could have saved her, she wouldn't have had to suffer for so long. And it was really hard to lift that off of, my heart and get past that. And I see that with my clients as well. A lot of the moms, especially when I teach them what they need to learn, one of the first things they say is, oh my goodness, I wasn't doing this before. And could I have caused some long-term issues or done some damage that's going to harm her when she's an adult, or harm him when, he's a teenager? And I always say, I'm like, there is no point in the shoulda, woulda, coulda, and the what ifs, it's absolutely, pointless to look backwards. It's not going to serve your child. It's not going to serve you. It's not going to change anything. You did the best you could with the knowledge you had at the time. There is no mother out there or father who intentionally says, yes, I know this is going to harm my child, or I know that this would be good for my child, but I'm just not going to do it anyway. There's no parent out there who actually intentionally does that. We do the best we can with the knowledge we have at any given time. So that's my, last piece of advice there for moms who are going through this is don't blame yourselves. Don't hold on to that guilt. It's something I really struggled with and had to overcome myself as well. Just move forward, learn what you can, do the best you can moving forward. Don't look back, because, whatever you did at that time, you did with, the knowledge and the life experience that you had in that moment. And that's the best you could have done.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's so true, and it's so easy to feel guilty. But the one thing that we are completely sure of as parents is that we will make mistakes, and we're not perfect, but we're just doing our
Yes.
best, and that's in all aspects of life, not just their nutrition.
Yes.
We'll try our best. Um, and so to go on specifically to plant-based nutrition, how have you found, or in general, for you personally with your daughter, but also with your clients, how have you found that living with a plant-based diet has helped gut health, has helped promote the right bacteria in the gut, healthier guts, and live just a better life?
So I love this topic because it's something that, parents really need to understand with their kids, is that the standard diet of, processed foods and burgers and fries and chicken nuggets, that in the long run is not going to serve your kids. In the short term, yes, it may be easy to get them to eat that because all the other kids are eating it. And, the way they create it in a lab, that they, add all these chemicals in there that make your taste buds just have this flavor
And
explosion.
sugars and
Yes.
MSGs and everything.
Yes. But in the long run, that's not going to serve your kids at all because you're not feeding their gut microbiomes. And we know that now that when we eat, we're not just feeding ourselves and our own body cells, which is important too. We need energy. So we need our protein, our fats, and our carbohydrates. We need all of that to build our own body tissues. Kids need a lot of healthy fats to build their brains, but we also need a lot of fiber to feed the gut microbiome. And without our gut microbiome, we are nothing. We rely on them tremendously. They, those little microbes. So just to give a little, I'm sure, most people in this group probably know about the gut microbiome, but just in case you're somebody new who hasn't. So the gut microbiome is basically trillions of bacterial and, fungal cells in the gut that are supposed to be there. And we've got our, beneficial bacteria that help us. And then we've got some pathogenic bacteria that aren't so helpful, but their numbers should be low so that they don't really actually cause any harm. And then you've got the neutral ones that, they don't harm us. They don't really help us either. They're just there. They're just along for the ride. So what we want is to feed those beneficial ones. We want to feed those because those do things like they help us digest our food. They help us synthesize certain vitamins like, B12. They help us to synthesize that. They also help to synthesize neurotransmitters like GABA and serotonin that help us feel good. They will make your kids feel happy. And, a lot of these mood issues that we're seeing in kids now, it's because of a lack of serotonin and GABA and
the
dopamine.
tantrums and the
Yes.
attention deficit and so many other things that come with
Yes.
that.
Yes, it's because of an imbalance in the gut, because when we're not getting enough of those neurotransmitters, our moods drop, we're more irritable, we can't focus because there's that, we know about the gut brain connection now. We know we've got the vagus nerve that runs from, the brain all the way down to the gut. And the gut and the brain communicate with each other through that. And the gut also communicates with the brain through these neurotransmitters. It creates them, sends them off into the body. They make their way up to the brain and really tell our brain, how to feel. So our, these little critters in our guts, they really impact a lot of, not just our health, not just our physical health, but our mental health as well. And so fiber is what feeds them. And you're not going to get fiber in animal products. They're lacking in fiber. That's something that they don't have. That's only in plants. And it's not just a little bit of fiber. So it's not just, when I grew up, we learned about like Metamucil and, psyllium and the really basic fiber. Oh, if somebody's constipated, they can take a fiber supplement. But that's not going to cut it. That's not going to
I
feed the
laugh
gut
because it's so true. We've all heard that. Yeah.
Yes. We need to actually eat a diversity of plants to get a variety of different types of fibers. There's different
Plants and
fibers that feed,
grains.
yes, that feed
Yeah.
different strains in the gut microbiome. And the more strains we have, the better. So we don't want to only feed one strain because that's only going to do, maybe one job for you. You want to feed as many strains as possible. And that's something we're losing. We're seeing that, when they study, they'll take stool samples from people living in tribes, like in the jungle, who haven't been, people who haven't been touched by modern, industrialized society. And when they look at their stool samples versus the stool sample of somebody who's living in, the industrialized world, there is such a difference in the diversity of microbes. Like, we've lost so much because we're over sanitized, where our food it's lacking in diversity. So we're not feeding these microbes, so they're dying off. So each generation is actually losing more and more of these microbes. So it's really important that we, now that we're aware of that we feed our kids this diversity of plants so that they can continue to feed these microbes in their gut and keep them alive. Because once they're gone, they're gone. We want to keep them alive and keep them thriving. And the good thing is that if your kids haven't been eating, a ton of fiber or a ton of variety of fiber, those microbes that they were born with are probably still there, or that they acquired over the first few years of their lives. They're still there. They're just in very small numbers. And if you start feeding them and nurturing them, they'll grow and they'll expand and multiply. So we can still nurture that little garden in our children's gut. We just need to be mindful of that. We need to actually be conscious.
And in our own, it's and everyone's. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think there's been an increase? I mean, obviously, we talk about processed food and junk food and convenience food, and that's obviously had a huge impact on the young generation and the new generation of children, which actually started even from our generation and beyond. But do you think there's also been a negative impact from the huge movement in gluten-free products and many people jumping on that bandwagon who are not, I mean, absolutely, if someone's celiac or if they are the 1 in 1,000, properly gluten intolerant, then fair enough. But so many people have decided, oh, gluten's not good for me, I'm going to be gluten-free. And have you seen, or do you believe that there's been a big increase in negative impacts on our guts?
I would say so, because now I myself am gluten-free because I actually have an intolerance, and so does my daughter. And that's something that I had to learn. But the amount of people that I've seen who don't have one and they just take it out or they take out, the worst is when they take out all grains.
All grains, I know so many.
That has become popular as well, where they just go on this grain-free diet, because there's been, a couple of books that were released about, the grain brain and,
I was about to say, yes.
And it's just awful, because those grains they're rich in all these different types of fibers, and so are the gluten, the gluten containing grains. And so you have to be really careful about limiting foods. I am gluten intolerant, so I have to be careful about that. But being gluten intolerant, I know that I have to put in that much more effort to include a much wider variety of other grains.
Other grains, then,
Yes, what I see people doing is they cut gluten out when they don't necessarily need to. If you don't need to, gluten-containing grains also feed beneficial microbes in your gut. So it's important to not cut it out unless you absolutely have to. And and then if you do absolutely have to, say if you do have celiac disease, or if you are gluten intolerant, which it's a very small portion of the population who actually is, then you want to include as many other grains as you can. You don't want to just live off of rice. And I see that with people who've gone gluten-free. I see them surviving off of basically just rice. That's their only grain. And they're not getting that diversity. So if you are going to do that, you need to include, quinoa, buckwheat, millet, amaranth, sorghum. You need to go and look at these other kind of forgotten grains and include those in your diet, because by only eating one grain, you're feeding a very limited variety of microbes in your gut. So you need to eat a variety of grains, a variety of legumes, a variety of vegetables and fruit, just a variety of all plants, of all plant foods.
Eat the rainbow, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And what I would say, that's also something that that I see a lot, is people are saying, oh, well, since I've cut gluten, I'm no longer bloated. It's like, well, is that since you've cut gluten or since you've cut processed, white, sugary junk? Yes. Whether that's your rubbish cereal that you bought, or whether that was, your burger buns that are heavily processed, or your white bread, or, which is not a whole food. So, and another big problem, of course, is the raisin or the grape juice resin that goes into these so-called whole seed or healthier breads that they sell that are just kind of darkened to look healthier, but they're not whole grains. So yeah, and so people are like, oh, we got bloated with that, but you did because it wasn't a whole food. Whereas if they get whole, and I personally found that as well, because before I went vegan, or definitely wasn't as healthy in my younger years, I've never been a bread person, and I didn't really enjoy eating a lot of the bread that I thought was available, or just grains. I didn't really enjoy them. I didn't enjoy rice, and I did feel bloated when I had them. And I used to have IBS as well, which is a different type of gut problem. And then now being vegan, and people tell me, oh, isn't your IBS really bad? And I'm like the opposite. I'm like, I don't have that problem, knock on wood, anymore. It's gone.
Well, for those people who feel like it got worse after they went vegan, I have an explanation for that. So I have heard this very commonly from people who say that once they switched to more plant foods, that they got more bloating and more gas. And that's because that's a sign that their gut microbiome was very, just lacking in numbers beforehand. Because it's really our gut microbes that help us to digest these plant foods. So if they're having issues digesting it, that means that they didn't really have a thriving gut microbiome. And so the answer to that is not to just, continue cutting these foods out because they're giving you bloating and gas. You actually need to very slowly increase the amount of fiber in your diet. So if you find that when you eat, a lot of people, especially with beans is a common one where people say that it gives them bloating and gas. Well, beans they feed a, very specific type of gut microbiome, that is, it's actually beneficial for maintaining a healthy weight. So they know that there are certain species that are more predominant in people who are obese versus people who tend to be leaner. And, other issues as well. There's a lot of health issues where they look at the people who have a certain disease or illness and people who don't. And there's either a species completely missing in their gut microbiome, or it's, the numbers are just not there. The numbers are very low. And so we know that you need to feed them. And so you need to feed them by actually eating these foods. And so if you're getting bloating, you need to start small. You start small and let your gut microbiome slowly adapt to it. Because as you start feeding them, they'll expand and they'll multiply. So, those gut microbes that you don't have very large numbers of, you do still have very small amounts of them. So if you start off with small amounts and you start feeding them, they'll grow and they'll multiply. And then you can start eating more and they'll be able to digest that for you. And then you can slowly add more and increase as you go. So the key, the answer isn't to just cut out the foods that are making you bloated, unless you're actually allergic or intolerant to something. But for people who just get general gas and bloating from eating high fiber foods, the answer is to keep at it and to just go, start low and slow and slowly increase your way into eating a more plentiful, plant-rich diet.
Oh my goodness, what brilliant advice. I love it. It's so important, but I love the way that you've just put that. And I already have so many people that I want to call and be like, oh, contact you. So on that note, if somebody is watching this and hopefully you'll see Kiran's link, but what is the easiest way to find you? Because I know, the benefit of this pandemic is everyone's become global now, and we can so easily access experts like yourself and the knowledge that you have online. So I'm sure that you take clients via Zoom and video conference calls and everything else. And people can find you on your Instagram as well, can't they?
Yes. So my Instagram is Key to Health NC. So my business is Key to Health Nutrition Consulting, because I really believe that nutrition is the key to health.
Absolutely.
So my Instagram is at Key to Health NC. And I do all of my client sessions are via telehealth now. So I actually don't, even for people who are local, it's via telehealth because of the pandemic. So I take clients from all over the world. And that's one thing that's actually been, something wonderful that's come out of the pandemic is just this globalization and how we can really connect people on the other side of the world now. And I've been able to help people in Australia, in Spain, in the UK, and that's not something I was doing before the pandemic. So it's pretty amazing how we are now so connected all across the
positive
world.
vibes, the silver lining of this pandemic for sure.
Yes.
And there are, I mean, the Cook Vegan community, which on Facebook is nearly 6,000 members now, are all over. So there's obviously a lot in Cyprus and Limassol where I am, but all over the island. And we have people in the UK and Canada and America and Australia, in Paris and Lebanon and Israel and Russia. So it's really great to see this. And hopefully they'll be watching this and if necessary, be able to contact you.
And I also just want to mention as well, I am running a free 5-day workshop.
I was just about to get to that now. Yeah, tell everyone.
That starts next week. So it runs from Monday to Friday next week. And it's all about raising thriving plant-powered kids. So it's called the Thriving Plant-Powered Kids Workshop. And it's a 5-day workshop. It's completely free, so you can sign up. I can post a link somewhere that people can click on to sign up for it. And yeah, I hope some of you can join me there, because I will be sharing, this is my 3rd workshop I'll be doing. And I always have a blast doing it. And I love meeting people from all over and just giving advice that you can really start using in your day-to-day lives and start implementing to raise thriving plant-powered kids.
Amazing. Yes, please, please, please do put it on the group and everything else. If you're watching this, guys, afterwards, because we're obviously on YouTube as well as being posted on Cook Vegan Facebook group. So do follow us on both and make sure you click your subscribe button. But yeah, you've got workshops coming and going all the time, so people can find that as well. I want to end just on we're Cook Vegan. So on a note about cooking, what is your favorite meal, vegan of course, to cook and why?
My favorite meal is actually the simplest. It's honestly just rice and beans or rice and lentils. Those are, they're comfort foods, and they're just so easy and nutritious, and they're full of fiber, like I've been mentioning as well. So that's honestly my, just favorite go-to meals, especially when it's something
you get all your amino acids, all your protein, it's everything you need. Yeah.
It's super simple, and it's, it's one of those staples where you can always just have them in your pantry. So those, when you're at the end of your grocery week and you're running low on groceries, it's something that you always have on hand, and it's just a great comfort food. I always love, if I'm not feeling well, which isn't often these days, or if it's just a cold, dreary day outside and I need some sort of comfort food, that's really my go-to. And it's my daughter's as well. She loves, just plain rice and beans.
Yeah, my kids do, especially in Arabic it's mujadra, and Greek it's fages. It's the traditional like green lentils mixed with rice. So good.
Yeah,
a bit of lemon
the right
top.
spice mix in there, and it's just amazing.
Amazing. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Oh my goodness, Kiran, thank you so much for coming on Cook Vegan. I've learned a lot. I'm sure everyone who's watching this has learned a lot. Guys, don't forget, you can find Kiran Sidhu on various platforms. The links are here. You can find her on Facebook, on Instagram. Do look her up and get in touch with her or introduce her to anybody you know who might be looking for, whether they've got a gut problem or not, just having a healthier lifestyle for their kids. Obviously, if they're vegan and plant-based, that's great. If they're not, it's still a great way to open our minds and our ideas to having very healthy kids. So that's what myself at Cook Vegan, we're all about here, and Kiran is too. So thank you so much. Follow her, subscribe to her, join her on all her platforms. And of course, if you're watching this on Cook Vegan, don't forget to join us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on YouTube, and click that bell notification so you don't miss any more Cook Vegan videos. And show us some love, put some comments below. Kiran will answer them as well if you have any questions. Over and out from us.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.